Hi guys, in this video we will be looking at inverse function. Actually, it's a continuity of our two previous video where we look at the inverse of a straight line and the inverse of an exponential function. Well, but in this video we will be looking at the inverse of a quadratic function or the inverse of a parabola. I want you to listen very carefully. Remember, guys, if you're new to this channel, what are you waiting for? Do the right thing. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Right? So, remember, guys, what I told you about the inverse. When we talk about the inverse, what is an inverse? Remember, in our previous video, I said that we are talking about the reflection about y is equals to x, where your coordinate will be swapped, where x is replaced by y and y is replaced by x. We said that that is an inverse, right? And we also spoke that an inverse of a straight line is a straight line, and an inverse of exponential, it's a logarithm. Inverse of a logarithm, it's an exponential. So today we will be looking at the inverse of a parabola. Consider you are given y is equals to 2x squared. Yes, it's y is equals to 2x squared. Then they ask you this question: what type of function is this, right? Let's say you were given it in a form of f of x is equals to 2x squared. Then they ask you this question: what type of function is f of x? In your mind, you have a sketch of a parabola like this, since it's a happy face, since a is greater than 0. You know that when you use your vertical line test, here it touches once, but here it touches twice. In other words, when they ask you such question, such as what type of function is this graph is, this is the graph of parabola. It's many to one function. I hope you are noting that the graph of a parabola is many to one function, just as I've shown here on our on the sketch, that when using a vertical line test, we see that it touches once, the horizontal touches twice, it touches twice, so it's many to one. It's many to one function, right? That's how you would have answer such question. Then let's go. Let's say they ask you this question: is the inverse of f a function? Then they will say, give reason for your answer. No, it's not. Remember, a function must be one to one, so your answer will be no. This is the inverse of many to one function. It's a one to many relation. That's how you can answer it when they ask you about the inverse of a parabola. They will say, is the inverse of f a function of this parabola, a function of this function? Is the inverse of f a function? They're talking about this parabola. Then you would have answered it as no. The inverse of many to one function is one to one many relation. It's one to many relation. You will answer it as is one to many relations. I hope you're noting, guys. So thirdly, they will ask you about the inverse. Let's find the inverse. So remember, as I've told you, since if they give you as in a form of f of x is equals to x squared, you will replace it by y is equals to 2x squared. Where there is f, we replace it by y, and yeah, from here we apply this rule. You will swap the variables. Where there is x, you put y. Where there is y, you put x in this case. So we are going to have 2y squared Are we done? No, we are not done. Remember, we're finding the inverse here. So because we need to make y the subject, we need to divide both sides by 2. Divide both sides by 2. Therefore, this 2 and 2 cancels. We are left with y squared, which is equals to x all over 2. So from here, guys, you are going to root both sides because you need to make y the subject, not y squared. So the square root of y, it's y. Square root of root x all over 2, this will be plus or minus. So we are going to have two solutions, root x all over 2. Sorry guys, for the background noises. Sorry for the background noises. They do happen in the area that I'm living in. Yes, I do encounter such, but I want you to focus on what is written here. I hope you saw how we came up with the inverse. So remember, since you have root both sides, since it's y squared, it's going to be plus or minus x all over root 2. I want you to see it very well. It's plus or minus. So remember, plus and minus when you root, and also put the restriction. So in this case, we could just say comma x is greater or equal to 0. So it's very important to put a restriction in this case so that we do things in an orderly manner. I hope you saw that this is how you can find the inverse, right? The fourth question that they may ask you is to sketch the graph of f and its inverse, and also include the line y is equals to x on the same set of x's. Okay, all right guys, let's delve in this. Let's do this. Please, yours will be accurate because I want you to use a ruler. For mine here, I'm using a rough hand. So this is y-axis and this is x-axis. So since we don't have, to this type of functions, we don't have a y-intercept and x-intercept. So our graph will be basically at origin. Will be basically at origin. So we'll cut at origin. We'll just cut at origin. Unless we use the table method. If I use a table method, we can also have other values that are very important to have. So let's consider, remember, you have your x and y here. So we have, let's say we have -2, -1, we also have 0, 1, then also have 2 here, right? Okay, for the original graph, right? Okay, so if I go to the original graph, remember, if I take -2 here, where was the original graph? This is the original graph here. If you put -2, you are going to have +4, and 4 times 2 will give you 8. If you replace it by y, you're going to have 2. So if you say 0, that will be 0 as well. So what about if you say 2 times 1, that will be 2 squared. 1 squared is 1. 1 times 2, that will be 2. So this should be 2 as well. So 2 squared, that will be 4. 4 times 2, that will be 8. Okay. All right. So I'm having these values, right? So I'm having -2 and 8. I'm also having -1 as well as 2. So we will swap this coordinate. Where there is x, you replace it by y, and y is y, you replace it. So this will be 8 and -2. For this one will be 2 and -1. You swap the coordinates for you to get the coordinates of an inverse, right? So 0 is to 0, remain as 0 is to 0, remain as 0 is to 0. Then we have 1 and 2. This will be 2 and 1. Then we have 2 and 8 there. 2 and 8. So this will be 8 and 2. Right, so this is the graph of f, and this is the graph of the inverse. So mind you guys, if they when you're here, if they wanted you to leave it in a form of f to the power of -1, this will be f to the power of -1 plus or minus root x all over 2. Very important to note. Okay, I hope you saw how we came up with the original graph points as well as the inverse points. It's for further information. So in this case, guys, now I will need to put these points in action. So if I start with 0 and 0, we can see that 0 and 0 will be here. So what about we have what we have 8 and -2. Let's go. This will be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. -2, this is 0 0 1 2, somewhere here. So we also have okay, 2 and -1, 0 1 2, 2 and -1 0 1. So probably it should be here. Then we also have 0 and 0 is there. Then we have 2 and 1, so 0 1 2, 2 and 1 it will be here. Then what is that again? 8 and 2. Remember 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, 8 and 2. So it's 0 1 2. So what we can do here is we go with it, guys. We go with it. Okay. Yeah. So you can also insert this points here. Yes, you can insert if you want to, it's fine. That's what I want you to do. You can also insert them. So this is the graph of f, and this is the graph of the inverse. I hope you see. This is how it is reflected. This is how it has reflected. I hope I'm making sense, guys, in terms of the sketch of inverse function. Remember, guys, as time goes on, we will look at those typical exam questions. Remember, you need this basics for exam purposes, guys. Yes, you need this. So lastly, they could say determine the domain and range. Let's start with the domain. So when they are looking for the domain of the original graph of f, we know from grade 11 this will be x is an element of real numbers, right? So this is for the original graph. What about the domain for, remember this is your mother graph and this is the inverse. What about of an inverse? Of an inverse, well, since this will be x is an element, we have 0 to infinity. So this will be 0 to infinity. So that's where it differs with. So that's the domain. 0 is to infinity, it undergoes infinity. So let's talk about the range. We'll start with the range of f. What will be the range of f? The range of f will be, remember, if your parabola, it's if a is greater than 0 as well as y should be greater than 0. So in this case, your range will be y is greater than 0, or you could say y is an element 0 and infinity. 0 and infinity. I hope I'm making sense. So in terms of the domain of the inverse, sorry, here you're using a bigger brackets and a smaller bracket here. I just made a mistake, so it's fine. So this is how it should be. So this is the range of f. So what about the range of the inverse? Someone asked, Mr. Richard, what is the range of inverse? So it's a vice versa, guys. So this will be y, it's an element of real numbers. Y is an element of real numbers. So you write it very well. Y is an element of real numbers. So that's what it is with the inverse of a parabola. So someone may ask, for you, remember, the inverse of a parabola or a quadratic function, it's a root function. Inverse of a parabola, it's a root function. Inverse of a root function, it's a parabola. That's how it goes. In addition, for enrichment, let's say sometimes they can give you this. They can give you this in a root form. They could just say x all over 2. Let's say they took the one that is positive. Then you have to find the inverse. You still do the same thing, guys. You swap the variables, or you interchange. Where there is x, you put y, and where there is y, you put this. So this will be y all over 2. Because we need y as the subject of the formula, we will then square both sides to get rid of a square root. So square root and 2 will cancel. So when you square x, it will be x squared. We'll be left with y all over 2. Because we are looking for for making y the subject, you multiply both sides. You're going to multiply both sides by 2, because this side you multiply by 2. This and this, they cancelled. So what is y? Then remember we're left with 2 times x squared. So this will be 2x squared. So this will be the inverse of a root function. So the inverse of a root function, it's a parabola. And inverse of a parabola, it's a root function. So it's a vice versa. So it's very important. I was just highlighting important facts that you need to know, guys. Remember that the graph of parabola, it's not a function. For you to make it a function, you have to restrict the domain and range. We will learn about that in our next video. How do we restrict the domain and range of a parabola? Wishing you all the best, guys, in all your endeavors, and I hope you will do well in your term 1 examination. You just have to know the basics. Basics are the key determinant to your success. See you on the next one, and take care.